Hi, I'm Darley Newman, and we're about to head out on a trail ride on Marsh Tacky horses, a horse breed that helped shape American history. Join me on a revolutionary road trip with horses and people here in South Carolina as we shoot off cannons, visit great restaurants, battlefields, and more. We're charting American history by going to sites related to the American Revolution. Welcome to Travels with Darley. We're traveling to historic locations in South Carolina on a revolutionary road trip, starting from the coastal city of Charleston, the oldest and largest city in South Carolina, and ending in the state's oldest inland city, Camden. We'll learn about our nation's founding and its future through the lens of history and travel at sites related to the American Revolution, as well as other historic gems you might want to seek out on this road trip route. We're starting less than a half hour outside of Charleston at the only plantation house on the Ashley River to survive intact, both through the Revolutionary and Civil Wars. Drayton Hall is a National Historic Landmark, and Trish Smith, Director of Preservation, relays what makes it special.
And what's exciting about studying this house is that the style of architecture is so ubiquitous now. We're so used to seeing it at schools and government buildings, and really, this is the first place that this touches down in North America is in this house. John Drayton purchased this property in 1738, and we think they started construction pretty soon thereafter. So it's pre-revolution.
It's definitely architecture that stood the test of time. And how did it survive all of these tumultuous times here in South Carolina?
It's really remarkable, and it's still kind of a big research question for us. We know that the Drayton family stayed in this house for 7 consecutive generations. So from 1738 all the way up to 1974, it stayed in the same family. So that helps. A big question we have, though, especially during the American Civil War, so many houses in Charleston were burned or damaged badly during the war, and that didn't happen here, and we don't really know why.
If only we could go back in time.
I know.
So how do these wonderful historic properties, some of which date back to the American Revolution, like Drayton Hall, stay preserved? Charleston, South Carolina is a special place. People travel from all over the world to experience the built environment here. And we're uncovering those layers of history and seeing how it's restored and preserved at the American College of the Building Arts, going behind the scenes.
So you really become a well-rounded.
Lee Handel leads me on a tour.
We came into existence after Hurricane Hugo, which hit Charleston in 1989. And so a group of Charleston citizens got together and thought we need to train the next generation of traditionally trained craftspeople. And that's how the American College got started. And we live in a laboratory. There's a huge gap in our workforce for plasterers, stone carvers, timber framers, carpenters, blacksmiths. So many people think, oh, I can't make a living as an artist. But indeed, in the traditional building trades, you can.
What are the challenges involved with keeping this history, this beauty alive and well restored?
You really need someone who not only knows what they're doing to restore it, but also has the preservation knowledge to do something that's going to last into the future. They say that we don't make things the way we used to, but American College, we beg to differ.
Ooh, I love it.
Yeah.
Upstairs in the library of the American College of the Building Arts, Colby Broadwater, a retired lieutenant general and president of the American College of the Building Arts, shares a rare collection of books focused on architecture, the oldest of which dates back to 1565. The college is actively collecting these treasures for students and the public to access, including Thomas Jefferson's collection of architectural works, believed to be the best collection on the subject dating from the founding of America. I've found a historic hotel to match my historic travel theme. I love staying in unique historic properties when I'm traveling. It really gives you the flavor of that area and its history. And I found another one right here in downtown Charleston on King Street, the King's Courtyard Inn. The King's Courtyard Inn is located in one of the city's oldest buildings and accented with remnants of what's traditional and historic from South Carolina's Low Country. If you're traveling around Charleston or the Low Country, just something to look out for. This is called a joggling board, otherwise known as the courting board. And if you just kind of bounce, you might end up in the middle with a partner or a friend. About 45 minutes outside of Charleston, I'm visiting a small town that was the site of a big battle during the American Revolution. The Battle of Monk's Corner on April 14th in 1780 was a victory for the British that would help lead to the fall of Charleston on May 12th, 1780. You can't get much more local than Howard's Restaurant. Now, if you live here and you dine at Howard's Restaurant, they probably already know your order.
Hey, you can't come in unless you do the chicken dance.
Wanda Blair has been at Howard's Restaurant since she was just 15. She worked her way up from server to owner. Are you Miss Wanda?
I am.
I heard about you. And if you're looking for an old world Southern diner experience, this is just about it.
Whoever went and fixed your breakfast for you this morning will do for a measly price. It's a mom and pop. We want your money. What you having?
We've got some crispy bacon, beautiful Southern biscuit. If you really want to dive in with locals when you're traveling, just head to a small town, head out on the main street, and you never know what you may find. You may find a hidden gem like Howard's Restaurant. Another hidden gem in Berkeley County, like Howard's Restaurant, has a small community that has rallied around it. Yvonne Knight Carter welcomes us to the Cherry Hill classroom.
We are the only one-room classroom that I know of left in Berkeley County in its original place. And the teachers taught everyone in this one-room classroom. My great-grandmother donated this portion of the land for the classroom.
This was a farming community.
Farming community. One of the students that went to school here did the quilt with all of the names of the families. And I think there were about 32 families in this community.
Flora Gathers wasn't a student at Cherry Hill, but like so many who have decided to preserve history, worked on its restoration to keep the past alive.
The classroom was outstanding in this community years ago. Those who were interested really cared about having this building restored because it held a lot of memories. Many people come in and said it's unique because they don't see this type of building around anymore.
We thought it was important that we keep a part of our legacy going.
We're driving from Berkeley County further inland to Camden, South Carolina, the state's oldest inland city. Along the way, we'll meet historian Rick Wise to learn about two sites related to the Revolutionary War that are accessible to travelers, starting at the Santee Indian Mound and Fort Watson.
Darley, we're now here at the Santee Indian Mound. The Indian Mound itself is over 1,200 years old. December 1780, the British assigned Lieutenant Colonel John Watson, Tadwell Watson, to come over and provide security for the routes that were going from Charleston to Camden.
Once an Indian ceremonial and burial site, the 30-foot-high mound stood out as a strategic location during the American Revolution when the British transformed it into a fortification. They basically took this Santee Indian Mound and they retrofitted it to make it almost a fortress.
They did. Kind of it makes sense because it was already 20 feet tall, so he made it a little bit taller. It was about 30 feet tall with the palisades on top, and he was able to defend it very successfully.
After two attempts to breach Fort Watson failed, the Patriots eventually figured out a way to attack.
There was a guy named Major Hezekiah Mayhem who recommended that they build a siege tower, just like they did against castles in the medieval times. And the tower was taller than the fort. They were able to fire into the fort and cause it to surrender.
Pretty MacGyver of them.
Oh, absolutely. The innovations of using this site to build a fortification and another innovation to be able to take it down. And when they captured Fort Watson, that was a part of the domino effect that caused Lord Rawdon to abandon Camden.
So this is a site with major significance during the American Revolution.
Oh, absolutely.
Just a 30-minute drive from the Santee Indian Mound, Rick is taking me to another significant battle site. Rick, we're here at the Battle of Eutaw Springs, the last major battle of the Revolutionary War here in South Carolina.
It is, and the sequence of battles that took us to this point, and the whole thing that General Greene was trying to do was be able to push the British back into Charleston. Utah Springs, it was kind of the culmination of 2 hard years of resistance that were taking place here in South Carolina. Some of the soldiers before this had written that they were tired of living off of eating frogs and turtles. Nobody knows about Utah Springs, but everybody's heard of Yorktown. Cornwallis would not have been at Yorktown except for the tough things that had taken place here in South Carolina. It shows the resilience of the soldiers who fought throughout the American Revolution.
Some of the nation's most significant battles during the American Revolution were fought in South Carolina, including further inland in Camden, South Carolina, a city that dates back to 1732. Following the siege of Charleston in 1780, Lord Cornwallis marched with British soldiers to Camden to establish their main supply headquarters. We're uncovering what Camden was like during this time period by stepping back in time with Stacey Ferguson at Historic Camden.
So this is Historic Camden. Our mission here is to interpret for visitors so they can get a feel for what life was like in Camden during the 18th century, especially while the British were occupying the town.
And they have the pillory and stocks.
Yes, it's a crowd pleaser. Everyone loves to get a picture over here. So these are a heritage variety of chicken, which means they've been around in this country way before the 18th century even. So they were well established here in the United States. They're called Dominique chickens.
They're a beautiful chicken.
For the common folks in Camden, they would share a communal water pump. Usually it was the children or the women or the servants that would come and fill up the bucket. And you can feel how heavy this is just with that much water in there. So imagine that being completely full.
Oh yeah, that's heavy.
So this is Macaw's Tavern, originally the home and office for Dr. John Macaw, which we turned into a tavern. After the fall of Charleston, the citizens of Camden asked the British for protection, which is another way of saying if you can't beat them, join them, as opposed to being utterly destroyed by the British. They were going to take it either way. While the British occupied Camden, they had redoubts like this one that were positioned all the way around the town.
It must have been pretty tense here with the British surrounding this town. You've got redoubts and cannons and people trying to go about their daily lives.
Camden would have been bursting at the seams with all these visiting troops. Not to mention, underneath it all, there was this animosity between the Loyalist families and the Patriot families that never went away.
A great place to learn more about the struggles that people faced during the American Revolution is at the Revolutionary War Visitor Center in Camden, where I'm meeting with Ricky Good. Ricky, this timeline is really interesting.
Even though Charleston fell, even though Camden was a horrible defeat, the Patriots didn't stop. They really didn't. They kept fighting. Kings Mountain, Cowpens, Guilford's Courthouse, Utah Springs, and then finally the evacuation of Charleston and American independence.
How many battles were there in South Carolina?
Oh, it depends on who you talk to and how you count.
Okay.
Conservatively, at least 200. Battles, skirmishes, local murders, if you will, over 400. South Carolina during the American Revolution was involved in a huge civil war. Brother against brother, father against son, and it was vicious and it was brutal.
And complicated.
Very complicated.
Very complex.
Very. This is one of my favorite walls because the decision to be a loyalist or a patriot was not easy, and it did divide families. So all of these people, they had divided loyalties. People had to decide for their own reasons, and anyone who says it's simple just hasn't read anything about the American Revolution. And that is why I like this wall.
Well, when you explain it like that, it does make you think a little bit more about everything. Yes. If you love horses and dogs, you might want to add Camden to your travel list. Dawn Kreitz is taking me on a puppy tour of Camden with her dog, Ever. So I was really interested, South Carolina's state dog. There's a state dog.
There is a state dog, and you're looking at her.
What are some things you would say about the Boyin Spaniel?
They tend to gravitate towards one person, and that's their person, and they are just fiercely loyal.
Look at this. Ever has gravitated right to the other Boyin. So these are around town. We're going to find these around town today.
Yes, this was commissioned by the city with Mary Day's Boykin Wortley. She did the small statues for me at the Boykin Spaniel Society, and then the city purchased extra that they made this puppy hunt that we're going to go on. So that's one of the first ones is right there.
Dawn, do a lot of people around town have Boykins?
Yes, they do. A lot of people have Boykins. They were created right down the road here from Camden in the town of Boykin, named after the family that created the breeds. It is one of only 3 that I know of that are American breeds. There's the Chesapeake Bay Retriever, an American Water Spaniel, and the Boykin Spaniel.
The little Boykin statues can be a little bit hard to find.
I think there's one right over here.
It's like an Easter egg hunt.
It is like an Easter egg hunt.
Hello. And hello, let's go find another one. And here we go again.
There we go.
We get a boy, we get a boy. Next Boykin. We head into the Camden Archives and Museum, where an exhibition is dedicated to the Boykin Spaniel and its history.
The section boat is down here, which is why the Boykin breed was so important to this area. They used that section boat to hunt in the swamps, and the Boykin was small enough to take in those boats that didn't rock the boat when they would jump out and get back in with the game.
This is so cool, and it's so neat that dogs, people, anybody can come in here and check out this history. Another popular spot for animal lovers is the Kershaw County Farmers Market, where Dorothy Butterson Davis and her dog Piper are showing me around.
I tell her she's my market mascot. Come on, baby.
All right.
And she'll just walk.
Lead us where to go, Piper. Well, this is a great farmers market. Thank you.
Thank you.
So good.
I'm so glad you
Loving this market already.
Kershaw County Farmers Market has been about 17 years in Camden. You can get fresh eggs. You can get fresh meat. A lot of beef, chicken.
You can rent a chick. You can rent a chick here.
They got lots of samples. Mm-hmm. You can come here and sample all day, and then you don't even need to eat lunch.
Battlefield historian Rick Wise is meeting me at Camden Battlefield to share more about the 1780 battle, which resulted in a British victory.
The Battle of Camden was fought on August the 16th, 1780. Unfortunately, it turned out very, very badly for the Patriots. 2/3 of the army ran, the militia, kind of how the militia had fought earlier in the war. And it was the worst tactical defeat of an American army during the American Revolution.
Rick, how many people died here at the Battle of Camden?
You know, it's really hard for us to tell, but we think it's around 400 that are still here on this battlefield. And so this is hallowed ground. Those soldiers after the battle were buried pretty much where they fell. Over here are the graves of 5 Continental soldiers who were buried together. I could envision these guys probably back to back guarding each other as they tried to fight these men off until they all went down, and then they were buried in a common grave. The sacrifice they made was remarkable. They allowed the escape of a lot of those Continental soldiers on the other side of the battlefield. Those soldiers whose fate it was to escape this battlefield, they were the ones that fought the Battle of Cowpens, Utah Springs, and they were the ones who accepted the surrender at Charleston. So a lot of our independence and liberty that we have today was the result of the sacrifice of these 5 men that were recovered here at the battlefield at Camden. I was a soldier for 23 years, and when I come out here, I think of the soldiers, and you think of the hardships that they went through. Do I commune with these guys when I walk around this battlefield? I do. What took place here is very humbling to me when I think about the soldiers and the sacrifice they made.
For over 50 years, the Battle of Camden Revolutionary War reenactment has been the largest force-on-force Revolutionary War reenactment in the nation. Trey Dunaway and a group of reenactors are meeting me on the battlefield to give me a taste of this annual event and greater context on artillery used in the battle.
Today we're going to be using a 3-pounder cannon, and Darley, I'd like you to actually do all the firing. Search the piece.
We're gonna search the piece.
You're gonna take this worm, it's got a curved hook spiral, and you're gonna put it into the cannon and pull out any debris. Advance the charge!
Thank you.
Load the charge! Ram the charge! That's it, prime. We are loaded and ready to go. All right? Are you ready?
Why do you have a sword out?
That's because I'm commanding. Make ready, fire!
Fire in the hole.
Jeez. How fast would they have had to do this? This is a lot of steps.
A crew could do this 4 to 5 times a minute.
Oh, wow.
And that's the power of artillery. On the Camden Battlefield, this would be used either to shoot grape shot, which is a 1-inch iron ball, and that's like a big shotgun, or it could be used as canister shots, which use musket balls, and again, it amplifies the power of one firing. So this was devastating on the battlefield.
Fire!
Many people descend upon Camden during the Carolina Cup. At the National Steeplechase Museum, curator Wesley Falconberry introduces me to this annual event and a rare horse breed that was an integral part of the American Revolution.
So the National Steeplechase Museum was founded in 1998. We are the only museum in North America dedicated solely toward telling the story of steeplechasing. We are also host to the Carolina Cup here at Springdale Racecourse. It's become a real rite of spring for people in South Carolina. Big crowds, lots of bright dresses, lots of big floppy hats. It's always a great time to check everything out.
Well, we're a horse-loving group, and I know that many people that watch the show also love horses. And horses were a big part of the American Revolution.
In South Carolina, no breed was more important than the Carolina Marsh Tacky, particularly down in the lowlands. They were descended from Spanish colonial horses, and it was these horses that Francis Marion, better known as the Swamp Fox, would use to great effect against the British, who tended to be mounted on more hot-blooded, Arabian-descended breeds.
What are some of the characteristics of the Marsh Tacky horse?
If you have a horse that's starting to get stuck in mud, starting to get tangled up, a lot of horses will panic, and that will only make the situation worse. The Marsh Tackies never panicked in those kinds of situations. They would just lay down and slowly work themselves out until they got their legs and hooves freed, and then would pick back up and keep on going. They can eat just about anything because they subsist on marsh grasses and things like that. They don't need a ton of forage, so you don't have to keep a ton of supplies specifically for your horses. They also tend to have a bit more of a coarse coat than other horses, which helps with all those little vines and burrs and sticky thorns and things that so would love the swamp.
On the grounds of the National Steeplechase Museum, I'm saddling up with Wiley Bell and members of the Carolina Marsh Taki Association to experience firsthand this rare breed used in the American Revolution.
These horses, they help shape American history.
Absolutely, because they were the common horse that was used clearing the land, developing the trade routes, and people were using horses for every single thing.
From colonial American through the American Revolution, and today out in South Carolina for hunting, for trail riding.
Every horse is different, but for the most part, their temperament is they're very even keel. They learn things quickly. They have a natural curiosity. I have just really loved this breed, and they ride so well. We do have one document that puts a Marsh Tacky in Marion's militia. Marion's men were just common folk. They would have brought their own horses. We like the folklore to think that he was riding these little agile ponies that we are now riding today.
It's interesting to think about that these horses were so prevalent during colonial times, and today they're in fact endangered.
We have about 500 living registered Marsh Tackies, and they will remain on the critically endangered list until we reach 1,000.
We're doing an off-road adventure here.
To really appreciate the horses is to get in the woods and experience that kind of riding, just to see exactly what they can do.
Okay, you said that those Marsh Taki horses could go through anything. I'm believing this proof. It's not until you walk or ride in the footsteps of our past that you truly understand American history. I'm Darley Newman, and thanks so much for joining me on this fun, interesting, sad, and amazing dive through history in South Carolina. And thanks for watching.
Yep. Good.
Okay.
You're getting better at this.
I didn't scream that time.
You flinched less.
I did. You're gonna rub on me. You're like hamming it up now that the camera's on you. These horses, they helped shape American history.
Absolutely. And Am I about to go into a whole thing?
Yeah. Okay. This is like the true locals experience. I'm Darley Newman, and I'm gonna fire one more cannon and not flinch this time.